satisfy everyone. But we do want to come to the best job that we can possibly do of creating a map that accomplishes bringing communities together that make sense to be together. If we go to the next slide. Now, one of the challenges of working in area like South Orange County is that a lot of our blocks are on those beautiful canyons and other natural features that just kind of create these weird census blocks. We talked about how the California Voting Rights Act wasn't designed with cities like San Clemente in mind, and the census clearly didn't draw census areas in San Clemente that made sense for districts either. And so one of the things that we are working on is making sure that when we're talking about these neighborhoods, the smallest units, that we divide the census blocks appropriately into their constituents to make sure that we can keep those neighborhoods and communities together. And that's something we're going to be working on from a technical standpoint starting tonight. If we go to the next slide. As part of this process, like I mentioned, we are going to have an interactive web viewer that will have all of that demographic data on it. And that'll be on the city's website. We'll have dedicated redistricting page or districting page for this process. And then we're also going to have, using those neighborhoods and smallest units we can possibly get, a tool for residents to draw their own maps. This will be a paper tool that people can take home with them that gives them some basic population numbers. And of course, they can go onto the website for more detailed information. If we go to the next slide. And so really, as I mentioned at the beginning, the purpose of these first two hearings is to hear about the neighborhoods and communities and to gather feedback on what should we include in the maps. And so that's where our conversation starts tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions about the districting process or about the criteria as well. And so with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin. Before we go into any discussion, do we have any comments in the
We do
public
have
hearing
some
portion?
comments on the public hearing. Amanda Quintanilla first, followed by Laura Smith, followed by Mike Kay.
So I'm very disappointed that the city didn't have a presentation at all before this. Also, they didn't have a presentation prior to voting for this, and they didn't have that representative even, or the consultant speak ahead of time, because a couple council members had questions, which they really need to know that information before making an informed decision. But it seemed like you already knew what you were going to vote. I mean, Councilmember Victor Cabral already had it, already had mentioned it at a couple public comment, public forums, and then also in his article. So you already knew what you were going to vote for. Thank you, Steve, for voting no. I really appreciate that. Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Noblock, thank you. But my concern is that the city manager also sat there not saying anything about the litigation contingency fund that we do have. And according to the consultant's presentation in his slide, there was a description of the costs for several lawsuits for several cities. And I didn't see anything regarding $20 or $30 million like Councilmember Victor Cabral has been saying on his, in his article or other places like the Downtown Business Association, the Chamber of Commerce, or at the San Clemente Times coffee chats. So I'm really concerned that some of these things that should have been brought up, some of these questions that you should have paid the consultant to do a preliminary, just letting you know, giving some information or giving the information to the members of the public to actually know what has been going on or what is happening. So so planning this out, it was a mistake. You should have done a better job in one, talking about what district elections are and really, or having better organization. And I'm really disappointed in all of you right now because, except for Mayor Pro Tem Steve Knobloch, because you had a duty to inform the public and doing it correctly with a lot of information before voting for the resolution. And I'm really disappointed in that, and I think you could have done a better job. We deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura Smith, followed by Mike Kay, followed by George Gregory.
I'm basically echoing Amanda's words. I am also very disappointed in you. I kept hearing before it was your judicial with our money to spend it, but you guys were just already wanting to spend money on this guy. You were so not caring about what the residents feel about district elections. And this guy had his presentation already. As soon as you had voted him in, he comes up with this presentation that you guys had already known about that he was going to do. And then he goes on to talk about it, and he's saying about he wants to create these communities, and yet it's going to tear apart our city. And we've always had our one town, one team, and now it's not going to be. And Amanda and I have always gone to the debates for the whole city council, and now that's not going to be because we're going to have completely different people to be voting for now. And it's going to be interesting to see how, if anybody even shows up to a debate for one person in one district. And also, he was showing the different, he kind of pointed out the Hispanic people. And this isn't even going to solve anything, because where he was talking about Los Mares, it's where I used to live when I first moved here in 1980 on Calle Canasta. And there's that small Canasta and Campana. If it's just them and the rest of the, as they say, non-Hispanic whites, they're still not going to get representation unless somebody in that area is running and wins. I mean, that's the whole gist of it. So there's no point behind this whole thing, and it's just so wrong, and yet you guys cave in, but you were ready to spend money on this guy who brings all this things that says it's going to be a great community of little community maps, and it's just a bunch of hogwash. And then we're going to have to, every few years, redraw lines on districts, and that's going to cost more money. Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Mike Kay, followed by George Gregory.
I feel sorry for you guys. This is going to be this is going to be a problem. I don't see a solution. I truly mean that. I have to echo what this woman just said. It's going sideways already. It's going sideways already. You guys have already messed it up. Why is there one guy from, no disrespect to Justin, that was very interesting. And he demonstrated that we do need some type of an expert. Even if we sue him, we need an expert. Why is there just NDC? Who picked that? Where did that come from? There's no transparency. I feel like this is already making me uncomfortable. And I was the pragmatic one kind of coming up saying, well, we got to probably do it. Let's try to be smart about it. Drama's in the details. This is not good. I saw a presentation where with some static demographics that did not relate to our town. We're 88% white, and we're talking about where the Asians live and where this lives. And that's not who we are. That doesn't matter. That's not our neighborhoods. It's who's got a dog, who surfs, who's got 3 cars, and who rides e-bikes, who's got kids, which school districts they go to, and which high school do they go to. Those are the types of things that define our community here. But none of that came up. It's a superficial presentation using very genetic demographics that could be applied to any town anywhere with some superficial research and some fancy numbers that did not reflect who we are, who are our various regional interests or groups here. I would like to see a steering committee put together. I would like to see a local person with the Justin or whoever we end up going with from the get-go. I'd like to see transparency. I'd like to see maybe a redistricting czar or someone who's riding it all the way through, who is always open to communication with the general public. I don't think city council should be that. I think each of you have a vested interest, unfortunately. Hate to say it. I like a lot of you guys. I like all you guys. But let's face it, you're also going to have ramifications from what they come up with. So again, I don't know the way out, but it's going to be a rocky road. I feel for you all, but I'm uncomfortable, and I'd like to see some local oversight right away. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
George Gregory.
George Gregory, North Beach, criminal. You guys planned to capitulate the whole time you were up there. What's the point of our participation? Thank you for your vote. You get the Spine Award now. You know, you guys didn't even plan to try to go up against this. Oh, we're afraid. Come on, Rick. They're pointing the gun at you. What do? You know? So the thing is how come we don't have a war room? How come we're not planning this as a class action suit with other cities? How come we're not joining forces against Newsom? Thank God he doesn't have an army, because he'd probably sick them on us. I asked that you agendize 2-year terms for council members if we're going to go to this districting. That way you restore part of my voice, just a little bit of it. It's not 5 times every 4 years, it'll be twice every 4 years, but at least it'll be more often. The problem is now, I've been trying to get rid of special interests in this community forever because they hold too much sway on us. Look at how much the Historical Society has cost us. Look at how much the DBA has cost us. They won't even water their own plants or wash their own sidewalk. I don't mind helping them, but they need to help back. You know, just because they own the most expensive real estate in town doesn't make them better. So the thing is, we need a war room, Mr. Hill, or Hall, sorry. And we need your participation, Mr. Knobloch. And we can beat these guys. They're not that tough. They're not that tough. The thing is, we just got to be smarter. There's even constitutional laws, as far as I'm concerned, that are being broken here. Because it's like the work truck, okay? Well, there's no protected class for the work truck. But there is for the operator of the work truck. There's no protected class for our city, but there is for the citizens of our city. And we have spoken clearly and said we don't like this idea. So the thing is we need to learn to push back, and we should be joining with other communities to push back, because that's how you get change. So we need a war room. We need just a whiteboard and a couple chairs and a table, and we need to figure this out, because this is really wrong and unfair, and now we're changing special interests from South Sacramento ruling my whole community to now I got Sacramento ruling my whole community. So, gee whiz, you know, where do I fit in here? I work hard and I pay an awful lot of taxes. So let's agendize the 2-year terms, and you guys can do that now. And let's agendize the idea of a war room. We need to at least investigate this.
Thank you, George.
Thank you for your time.
Nice Aloha shirt.
That's it for public comments.
Okay, do we have any questions of our esteemed consultant here? Sorry, Justin.
Questions of our consultant?
Yes,
I
yeah, we have to have those done before we close the
Yeah,
public hearing.
I have a question. Mr. Douglas, in your slide presentation, you had one slide where you indicated there was a reference to the elections. And it said, do we have 5-0 districts, or do we have a 4-1 with the mayor? This town for 96-plus years or so has had districts by 5 council members being elected. This council hasn't suggested or recommended in any way that we have a mayor with 4 council members. I guess we haven't instructed it, nor have we instructed 7 members or even a 2-year term at this time. Why was that on there, and what prompted you to add that information to present tonight?
Sure. In part because we don't have a clear decision, we didn't come in with a clear decision on.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Because we didn't come in with a decision on whether or not the council was interested. A lot of cities that have 5 council members, when they switch to district elections, adopt a 4+1 system to continue to give voters of the city at least one position that is continued to be elected by voters citywide.
Okay, well, I understand your rationale, but my point to my colleagues would simply be, no one has suggested that, and to even put it on the table as something we would or should be looking at is, in my opinion, inappropriate. But thank you for
I think he put
providing
it
that.
on there because it meets the CVRA standard,
Well,
right?
sure
So
it
he's
does.
giving us the options that meet the legal standard.
Sure, and having 7 council members dividing the city 7 ways would also meet the CVRA requirement, I presume. So I guess the point is, this letter is compelling us, and the council decided to be compelled to have district elections. That's district elections for the 5 members that have been elected. So beyond that, I don't see, just because other cities have done other things, that this should be part of our analysis at all at this point, unless this council directs otherwise.
Well, the only thing is, we're going to have public hearings, and they're going to be shown options, and so the public can weigh in also. Maybe
Right,
that's
well,
what, maybe.
The public can and we
Trying to
can,
have
but
options.
as our consultant, he should be, I just don't think we should be priming the well, so to speak, in any area other than what we're required to do.
Okay. Any other questions for Justin or any other staff before we close the public hearing?
One last question. You mentioned the 10% variation, so we have 65,000 people, that's 13,000, divided by 5 is 13,000, so the 10% variation would be 1,300 population, so is it 13
So each district.
divided equally between 2 districts, the variation?
So each district could be about 650, about half of that.
Half of the
660.
13, 1650, within 650 is what you're saying?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question, what, in the next public hearing, what does that look like? What does that look like for the public? What will you be presenting at that hearing? What should the public be preparing
Yes,
for?
the second public hearing is very similar to the first. We repeat the presentation where we talk about the criteria, what neighborhoods and communities are, the state laws governing the districting process. We are not allowed to show any maps before the third public hearing. And so the state requires that the 2 actually be almost identical or as close to identical as possible in terms of the presentation.
Councilmember Cabral.
Yeah. I just want to make a comment about figures and data that I used. Every city that has faced this has had public hearings. They put information out about their costs and expenses. A lot of your reports are online too. So I've taken the opportunity of looking at a lot of cities and seeing what they've done and studied what other cities are spending. A lot of what I've done, the background work, and the reason I wrote that editorial is because I spent a lot of time and energy over the past month trying to learn this issue. These figures, this data didn't come from nowhere. It's out there in the public domain. It's online. It comes from city reports given to various cities about what they've spent, how much they spent, what their dollars. To the issue of Santa Monica, do you have any public information about what they've spent in cost, or what they're expected to spend in terms of dollar amounts?
Sure, and we don't have an exact number. We know that the city has been, the attorneys for the city have actually, the city council has been quoted as saying that they've spent well into 7 figures on this. And I believe most estimates say that they've spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million on their defense.
on their defense? And do we know what the other side might be expected to be paid? I
We
think I
know
read
that
it
they're
in an
asking
article.
for somewhere in the neighborhood of 32 million.
32 million. Okay, so I was a little bit short then.
Well, it just depends, like a lot of the ones that I put up on the slide, they were the settlement agreements, so it wasn't like the plaintiffs got everything they wanted.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is they're the only ones that have fought it this far.
Yes,
So that's
that-
like worst-case scenario, if we fought it that far. We
Absolutely.
could be into it for $30 million. Is that?
If we did, I
$50
would.
million.
It could be 50, potentially. The other thing, I just wanted to clear the record up about this is, yeah, a lot of stuff that we do, when we got this letter, and this might be to our attorney to comment on, a lot of the stuff that we do, we get a notice, and then it gets automatically sent to our legal counsel, and then we're in closed session, so we can't talk about all the reports, all the studies. We're prohibited from discussing that with the public. So, people think we're doing this in secret. We're not doing it in secret. We're doing it as the law requires us to do in closed session. And if we could talk about it publicly, what happens in there, we would, but we can't. So that's the only comment I wanted to make about that. I wish, and we're governed by rules. I wish we could talk. I wish I could talk to my colleagues more, but I can't. I can only talk to one of them at a time. I wish that we could be more transparent in some of our legal matters, but we can't. So we work within the framework of our laws, and that's the way it is. And unfortunately, we've got to follow the state and city laws that we have. That's all I have there.
Victor, I'll close, Don't be afraid of these people.
Well, to that point, let me round it out with this, Justin. I mean, you presented a lot of information. The standards you're talking about, is this something that the city has discretion in, or is this as set forth in the state law as it at least stands right now?
So a lot of the timeline, the procedure, that's all as it's set forth in state law. In terms of the data, we'll obviously work to get whatever data we can. A lot of what we post is from the census, from the American Community Survey, and from state databases, because these are very common things people ask for. I wish the census collected information on people who surf. I can guarantee it would be in there if they did, but that's the kind of information that we're hoping that members of the, people who know your neighborhoods better than certainly I do coming in, can help us with.
And is that the purpose of these public hearings, is for the public to be able to come forth with that kind of information?
Absolutely. And a lot of times our most successful process, the map is not something that we've drawn. It's something that a community member has submitted.
Okay. Any other questions of staff or Justin here? Okay, thank you, sir, for your time. With that, I will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion, I guess, or let's see.
We're not
We
making
don't
a
really,
motion, are
we don't have anything to decide, so there's nothing to discuss?
You can discuss anything related to this topic, but there's no action item for
Yeah.
the public hearing.
My question would be, with the hearings that need to take place, how are those going to be scheduled?
City clerk?
Yes, I can answer that. There is a schedule attached to.
Want to reopen the public hearing?
Pardon me.
No? Okay. Usually you make me do that. Okay.
There's,
We will not
there,
reopen the
there's a proposed timeline as part of your agenda report on, let me find the quickest way. It is attachment.
My question is, then do we need to vote on that, or is that,
You voted on it when you adopted the resolution of intention. It's in
that was
there.
included in the resolution? the scheduling?
Exactly.
Okay, that
And,
answers my question then. Thank you.
One thing I will note is that the second public hearing is slated for September 5th, so that will be noticed. The public will have an opportunity then to comment again, and we've,
I have a question that's mentioned what type of districting we would want to go into, 5, 7, mayor, no mayor, at large. What hearing would that decision come up in, and when would we discuss that?
You can discuss it at any time. If you want to have that agendized for a decision to be made at the next hearing, you could, or later in the process. Whenever it's you're in control of that process, so whenever you'd like to do it. You just can't take a vote on it tonight because it wasn't agendized.
Right, okay, yes. So more to come on that. I mean, I'd just like to point to a lot of legitimate frustrations here, and we're sitting here, so we're taking it. But this is because of the state law. The state law sets this all out. If we want it to change, we got to change the people in Sacramento who are voting on the state laws and change this and make it more receptive and more fitting for communities like ours. But we're not at that point. We're at the point right now where the law is the way the law is, and this council is reacting as responsibly as we can to under the confines of that law. So thank you for all that participated in that. Let's move on to our next item.
Mr. Mayor, could we take a quick 5-minute break?
Sure. Does that sound good? Sure. Yes. Okay. We are at. Let's reconvene at 9:15.
Thank you.
Wait, who was that guy who was bad-mouthing me a minute ago? Who was that guy? That guy's not the guy who wants the ladders, is it?
I hope not.
Ladders? All ladders are now illegal in the city of San Clemente. You can't own a ladder.
Start you guys your ferries at Wayne.
Okay, City Clerk, let's restart our meeting here, and I think we're on item 7B.
7B, this is a continued public hearing. It's introduction of an ordinance to modify the definition of commercial vehicle and finding the ordinance not subject to the California Environmental Quality Act. And we have Deputy Community Development Director Atamian here to present.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Adam Atamian, Deputy Community Development Director. The item before you is, as our clerk indicated, a continuation of a portion of the public hearing item that was heard at a previous council meeting related to commercial vehicles. In order to separate the complexity of that item, we decided to bring back just the commercial definition portion of the project that was presented previously. So what is for your consideration tonight is an ordinance to revise the definition of the term commercial vehicle that is located within Title 10 of our municipal code, and to add additional language to further clarify when a pickup truck is deemed a commercial vehicle. Staff has included some suggested language to address previous comments made to the council and some of the considerations that were brought forth at the last meeting. And essentially what we're discussing is Part 3 of the definition states that a pickup truck is not considered a commercial is considered a commercial vehicle if the vehicle has been modified to include a rack extending over the length of the vehicle's bed, which currently has goods or wares of a commercial nature stored thereon. And staff is recommending that that be modified to say the vehicle has been modified to include a rack extending over the length of the vehicle's bed, which currently has goods or wares of a commercial nature, comma, with the exception of ladders that do not extend beyond the horizontal limits of the vehicle, comma, stored thereon. That modification would allow pickup trucks with ladders attached to a utility rack to not be considered commercial vehicles and thus allowed to park on city streets for more than 2 hours. So with that, staff's recommendation is that the council introduce and conduct a first reading of the ordinance attached here too. That is my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Before we hear public comments, do we have any questions for staff?
I've got a question.
I think, would you, go ahead.
No,
Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry, I thought you were.
It says, is there any way to change that wording where it says ladder instead of multiple ladders? To where you can have one ladder on there and not like 10 or 12 or 15?
Absolutely. If council decides to move forward with that with a motion, the motion would just be to adopt staff's recommendation with the modification of that language. And I think it would suffice to say the additional language should say with the exception of a ladder that does not extend beyond the horizontal limits of the vehicle.
Okay. Councilmember Cabral? Did you have any questions?
No, I didn't have a
Okay.
question right now.
Any other questions?
I just received a few letters here of that there's worry that if this is adopted, we'll see a lot more commercial vehicles being parked in residential areas for extended periods of time. Can you speak to that? How was this, this original ordinance was written many years ago to help alleviate that issue of parking, especially in Southside San Clemente or the Pure Bowl area. How, is there any predictive model of what would happen with this in terms of more commercial trucks being there or not?
There's no predictive model. However, it would surprise me if there are more vehicles being parked. The only thing that this ultimately changes is that Right now, a pickup truck with a utility rack is allowed to park on on public streets. What's not allowed is if that pickup truck has a ladder on the rack. So the fundamental change here is that, or what people would perceive as the change, is that vehicles that have trucks that have racks on them will now be able to have a ladder or ladders on them, depending on council's direction. So it would just be, people would see more ladders, not necessarily more vehicles,
Or ladder.
or ladder.
Or ladder, okay. Yes, a
Yeah,
question. Thank you.
Just going
Councilmember
to follow up on that same question. I've heard the same concerns, obviously, about, increasing number. Do we have, were you aware of this being a problem in the past, that we had a substantial number of pickup trucks with ladders, businesses with ladders parked around town, that it would, we're going to recreate the problem that was eliminated by having a ladder on a truck?
I don't know the extent of the issue as it existed before these regulations were adopted locally. Potentially, Captain Christian may be able to speak to this a little bit more, but I don't.
No.
This is not a highly enforced section of the code. We don't see a lot of violations of this particular section. It would surprise me that if there are pickup trucks with ladders that are currently not being parked in the street because they have ladders on them. I think it's more the case that people need to remove the ladders and store them in a place where those items can be stored off the street, but the vehicles can then still be parked on the street.
Okay. Any other questions of Adam here? Okay. Any public comments? City Clerk?
Yes. Martin Barnes. Followed by George Gregory, followed by Amanda.
Gentlemen, welcome, Andy. My first time to be here, so it's kind of a challenging story. Let me ask you this. That's a picture now. Would you tell me, would that be legal or illegal per our code?
Currently,
this
right,
is
that's a
appropriate.
difficult question to ask.
Yeah,
I'm going to send you, I left Laura a load of pictures.
Oh.
okay, we will look at them later, but your time is running, Martin. I want to make sure you have a chance to talk. You get 3 minutes here.
So, 3 minutes. Anyway, you want to change the rules, and I live on a street where we've got a lot of surfers. I live right by the Pier Bowl, a lot of tourists, a lot of people that work at Fisherman's and all around. And when there's a good wave, every plumber and every electrician is on Cazador Lane. Now, we've all of a sudden got city trucks now parking on our street for 7 days and 7 nights. Now, the lads that I talked to in town, they said if the city truck can park on our street for 7 days and 7 nights, why can't we? So if you want to open up Pandora's box and let everybody park on our street, God love you and God bless you, but we're going to fight back. And our street is loaded every single day, every single weekend. And you know what? As a resident, I can show you pictures. Here's a lad that lives down the street that wants to build a motel and a restaurant and stuff like that. And he's asked the planning commission to give him 9 parking places. This is how he's parking right now. I'm walking down the street to the Beachcomber. He's parked on the walkway, and it's okay. Chief of Police, I'll show you this picture in a little bit. Why is he allowed to do it every day? Why is this truck allowed to be parked 7 days and 7 nights on our street? And we have rules, we have laws, okay? You're on me all the time if I leave my car out when the street sweeper's coming by, you're happy to give me a ticket. All these guys never get any tickets, never get tickets. So, is my time up?
You have about 30 seconds left.
Okay. Anyway, I love this city. I've been here for about 18 years. I'm an immigrant. I came as a foreign exchange student from Ireland. And these people are fighting about stuff here today, dividing people. They never talked about community. I just came from Ireland in April, and we have 200,000 Ukrainians that we've adopted and brought into our country. We did the same thing with the Polish people. We need to just look at ourselves and have accountability in our own hearts and our own souls.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Martin. Well said.
Cheers, thank you.
George Gregory, followed by Amanda.
Howdy, George Gregory, still a criminal. Anyways, it's not a ladder. You can't function with a ladder, okay? You need a ladder to get up to the eaves on a 2-story house. You need a ladder to work inside the house to hang a fan. My truck is here with ladders on it. I want you to take a look at it. It's also not just the ladder. The ladder is a code word for the whole crummy law, because I left my shovel handle sticking out of the truck too on purpose, because that's a violation, because I guess I'm a ditch digger. But all of these things are okay on council's car. Well, isn't that a little discriminatory? You can drive around on council's car with a ladder on top till the cows come home. But a pickup truck with the ladder properly strapped to the ladder rack is a violation? A 2x4 is a violation? A fence board's a violation, but a surfboard isn't? It's craziness. And it was used as a political weapon against me. Somehow they found a crooked-ass cop who went around and gave me tickets repeatedly night after night. Now, I drove around night after night taking pictures of many, many, many vehicles that weren't cited. So why did he discriminate against me? Because we had a crappy-ass council back then. Special interest council. So anyways, what you do need to write into the code is that fleets aren't parked on streets. This is my primary vehicle. I need this vehicle. And if I worked for Sasco, I would need to take the work truck home. But I don't expect Sasco to park on our whole street and block up every darn parking spot. They can afford their own parking lot, like Cox Cable can. But they park their trucks all over our town. But no, not just Mr. Little Contractor. No, we're going to beat his ass. And the thing is you do it with a guy with a gun sneaking up on my truck in the middle of the night. Knock on the door. You want to fight? Knock on the door. Go ahead, see what you get. Because I'm just a fabulous guy, one of the hardest working, nicest people you've ever met. And I don't deserve this kind of treatment, neither do the other people in our community. You drive up and down Ola Vista and stuff. Look at the violations. And they go constantly uncited. Wonder why? Is it because I'm up here speaking in this microphone? It shouldn't be. I implore you to look at my truck. Look at the shovel handle sticking out of there. As a matter of fact, there's a work shirt hanging over the side. Is that a violation? That's a work shirt. That's a commercial wear. So the thing is, don't let the fleets park on the streets. You need individual registered vehicles. Okay? I don't drive a truck because it makes me look good. I drive it out of necessity. Do you want to take care of me? Do you want to buy me supportive housing? Would you rather see me do it myself? Thank you, counsel.
Can I just ask George one quick question?
All right.
We talked about ladders and ladders. George, when I emailed you and said, how many ladders do you have on your truck, what did you answer?
Don't remember. I have 3 right now.
Okay.
All right, okay.
I was just
Let's limit
curious.
our questions.
I
Thank
have
you,
an
George. I
extension
appreciate it.
ladder, an A-frame ladder, and a little 6-foot ladder so I can do things like inside the building.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any other comments?
Yes, Amanda, followed by Mike Kay.
Okay.
The reason why I'm speaking tonight is because I think this is a safety issue. I think that's how the commercial vehicle ordinance came into being, because living in town, parking is really limited and sometimes there isn't a sidewalk, sometimes there is. The problem is that, I remember years ago walking, and I saw a truck with a surfboard in the back. Well, I didn't see it, actually. I felt it. I felt the surfboard on my head. So I think that's what happened. I think people decided, maybe there was public sentiment out there saying, okay, here's a ladder sticking out the back end of a truck, and that is a safety issue. So I think, if I could remember far back then, I think there was a problem regarding that. So, as far as one ladder, or two ladders, or three ladders, how far is it going to stick out? Is it just standing up or horizontally to where it extends out in the street where people won't be able to see that at night? There is no red flag. Is there going to be a little light showing for people that, hey, there's a ladder there, oh, there's a surfboard or whatever? But I think, like the first gentleman said, this might open up a can of worms and have problems. And we certainly don't want any more lawsuits against our city for voting on something that potentially might hurt someone, might poke out an eye or have a concussion or head trauma because of it. So that is a concern. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Mike Kay.
Council, I'd ask that you do not pass this. Commercial vehicles are already defined by the state of California. I own 2 commercial trucks. I drive my trucks around repairing properties that I own. I don't know if that's considered commercial or not. I'm not a contracted person, but I'm doing repairs on my own buildings. I have workers who come from as far as Palm Springs. My electrician was here last week from Palm Springs. He parked his truck out on the street overnight and stayed in a room that was in a property we were redoing. The idea that we would carry the ladder in and set it up somewhere just seems preposterous to me. It seems like overreach. Seems like a law going up against a problem that doesn't really exist in any meaningful way. Also, as pointed out, a lot of these pickup trucks are people's only vehicles. Younger people working in construction don't have a second vehicle. They can't afford a place to park it. The land's expensive here. People don't have contractor yards the way they do in inland cities. So there's sort of a practical side of it. It seems unfair to our tradesmen, our men and women who are working with their hands, and the ladder is a tool. It just seems you're stepping on somebody's livelihood, and it seems like overreach. I want to share one other thing, though. There are needs. There are parking restrictions here. There is safety issues here, and as pointed out, there are fleet vehicles parked in our town. They do take up spots. I go to Surf and Donuts now and then, and there's a fire company that has 6-7 vehicles on one little street right there. It's frustrating. I can't park. So there probably is need to look closer at commercial vehicle parking in our town, but I don't think going after the small business woman or business lady, a tradesperson, just because one of their tools is on the roof is proper or correct at all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
No more public comments.
Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I on this item, I originally asked that this be agendized. I think the definition of the commercial vehicle needed to be modified. I think ladders extending beyond the length of the vehicle can be problematic. As one of the speakers said, you bump your head. You're taking up space that your vehicle isn't entitled to. But originally, my impression, having lived in town for 23 years, is that this ordinance was kind of put into effect because people in certain neighborhoods said, I don't want to look at a commercial truck in my nice neighborhood. The problem is that people work, and sometimes, as we've heard from testimony, people have vehicles and they have ladders, and the ladders are important. Surfboards also can be on the top of vehicles, and from a security point of view, if the surfboard isn't brought in at night, it might get stolen. If the ladder's not brought in at night, might get stolen. But it's a safety issue that isn't a problem, in my opinion. If a vehicle has a rack and a ladder attached, or multiple ladders, as long as they're not impeding the space, I think it's not helpful to our business community and to our citizens that work for a living to have that restriction. So I'm supportive of the ordinance and which modifies the definition to allow a ladder to be on, as long as it doesn't extend beyond the length of the vehicle. And I'm, at the appropriate time, prepared to make a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Okay. Any other discussion? Or would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we introduce ordinance number 1755, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, amending section 10.04.010B1 of the San Clemente Municipal Code relating to the definition of commercial vehicle and finding the ordinance not subject to the California Environmental Quality Act.
All right, is there a second?
Okay, go ahead. I'll second it.
Okay. Motion is Noblock, second is Cabral. Councilmember Leffler.
Aye.
Councilmember Enmeyer.
You can come back to me.
Okay. Councilmember Cabral.
Aye.
I'm a no. I mean, I think we're in search, this is a solution in search of a problem. I don't know why we keep revisiting this. I see almost no interest in changing this outside of my good friend George, who's a wonderful citizen of San Clemente. I have to agree with all of that. But I don't see a reason for a change because I'm not seeing any issues out there. But, so I'm a no. Councilmember Enmeyer.
Yeah, I guess I'm torn on this one. I see both sides of it. I'm split 50-50. Yeah,
This is why you get the big bucks, man.
Yeah,
Take
right.
tough calls like this.
Yeah, you know, I see the point of supporting our small businesses. I also see the point of protecting our residents from this. Man, I'm so torn on it. I've been struggling with it since the agenda has come out on it.
Well, if it helps, there's 3 votes in favor.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we could, if it becomes a problem later, we can always undo something that we have done.
That is true. Yeah.
Well, that wasn't what I was thinking, George.
You're right. If this becomes an issue again, we can undo it. I think the issue that was brought up years ago, it'll be interesting to see in the next few months with this ordinance change, does that issue come back up again? If so, I think we do need to revisit it. But for now, I'm willing to try it out with the expectation, hey, if we get a bunch of complaints, and then let's revisit it. So I'll be an aye.
All right. Councilmember Enmeyer's an aye, so it's 4-1, it passes. Duncan, the lone no vote.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, consideration of a resolution of intention and introduction, first reading of an ordinance to authorize an amendment to the contract with California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS. And we've got Hannah Thordal. I was actually resolution. I will note on the staff recommendation for the resolution, there's one typo. It should be Park Ranger 1 and Park Ranger 2. So if council does wish to adopt that resolution, it would be with that one minor modification. It's correct in the resolution itself.
Or it's an ordinance, so yeah, okay.
Resolution, it's number 1.
Oh, the resolution is the
Yes.
one. Oh, I see. Okay. All right, thank you for that. We have Hannah here.
Okay.
So would you like to make a presentation?
Sure. So good evening, Mayor, council members. Hannah Thordal, Human Resources Manager. So as the city clerk said, this is the item before council's consideration of a resolution of intention and an introduction of an ordinance that would authorize an amendment to the CalPERS contract. The contract amendment will revise the current exclusions of Ocean Lifeguard and Park Ranger. They would replace them with the Ocean Lifeguard 1, Ocean Lifeguard 2, Park Ranger 1, and Park Ranger 2. These are hourly part-time positions that are excluded from contract currently. We're coming back to the council at this time in follow-up to the hourly part-time class and compensation study that we brought to council on April 4th of '23. One of the recommendations in that study was that staff seek opportunities to revise the current classifications that we had, and that, so we would be better able to assign employees based on their experience at a higher level. So city staff reached out to CalPERS, their membership and contracts division, to see if they would allow us to do this, what it would take. So they got back to us in mid-June and let us know it would take a contract amendment. So they gave us the outline and the steps on July 12th of this year. There is a process that is dictated by CalPERS and government code, and this is the first step in that process would be to adopt the resolution of intention, and then there'd be an opening of your public hearing to introduce the ordinance. And if this all goes as planned, the amendment would become effective on October 15th. Staff does recommend that the city council adopt this resolution of intention, and if you have any questions, I'm available for those.
Any questions of staff? No?
I have no questions of staff.
Okay, no questions. No question. Okay, anybody want to make a motion and have the city clerk read the ordinance as part of that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Okay, city clerk, will you read the ordinance as part of that motion?
Adopt resolution number 23-87, which will approve an amendment to the contract with CalPERS to replace the existing exclusions for ocean lifeguards and park ranger to provide for the exclusion of ocean lifeguard 1, ocean lifeguard 2, park ranger 1, and park ranger 2. And as part of that motion, were you also introducing the ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Introduce ordinance number 1757, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of San Clemente and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System.
Who made the motion again? Okay, Enmeyer, no.
Victor
Cabral.
made it.
Cabral.
Okay, you second it, okay. Motion is Cabral, second is Enmeyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. The item passes unanimously. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Yes. On to new business, yeah.
Next item is Public Safety Committee review of the Park Ranger Program enhancements. And we have Deputy Community Development Atamian.
I expect to see you in an Aloha shirt at our next meeting.
Even though the rest
Sir.
of us won't be.
We may. We can talk about that. It's still sort of summer, so, yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the City Council. Adam Tamian, Deputy Community Development Director. The item I am here to present is the Public Safety Committee review of the Park Ranger Program enhancements. Danielle Sorahan, our Code Compliance Manager, was unable to be here tonight, so I'm going to present this on her behalf. This item comes as a agendized item by the City Council to direct the Public Safety Committee to review the enhancements of the Park Ranger program. Currently, the city is in the process of recruiting and hiring for a new park ranger supervisor and 2 full-time positions called park rangers, senior park rangers. As part of that program, the city staff is currently analyzing our resource needs as it relates to the Park Ranger program, and staff is supportive of having the Public Safety Committee review that analysis and provide input to make recommendations for additional resources or other enhancements that may help increase the effectiveness of our what will become our new Park Ranger program. So with that, staff is requesting the council direct the Public Safety Committee to review the Park Ranger program's current enhancements and make recommendations for the City Council's consideration at a future date. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion is Noblock, second is Enmeyer. All in favor?
Aye.
I was the second, but no big deal. We look a lot alike.
Oh, sorry, Leffler.
Dressed alike as you are.
Second is Leffler. And, yeah,
I can tell we old guys apart anyway.
that's right, you guys, the twins up here on the ends. So that passes unanimously.
You got a little gray hair there.
I know.
A lot more in the last few months.
They're looking like you guys by the end of my term.
End of the night.
Okay, next item on the agenda is introduction of an ordinance modifying the Coastal Advisory Committee's mission statement. At council's last meeting, you adopted an ordinance which created a Coastal Advisory Committee. At that time, council directed staff to return with a modified ordinance stating that the Coastal Advisory Committee's primary responsibility would be to enhance the preservation and replacement of sand on city beaches. That modification has been made in ordinance number 1758, and I'm here for any questions.
Mayor Pro Tem, is this address the concerns that you raised?
Yes.
Okay, you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we introduce ordinance 1758, entitled an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, amending section 2.29.015 of the municipal code of the City of San Clemente regarding the Coastal Advisory Committee's mission statement,
And that we receive and file.
and that we receive and file the administrative report.
Oh, second?
Okay, motion is Noblock, second is Enmeyer. Second is Leffler. No. Second is Enmeyer. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, it's unanimous again. That motion passes.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of setting compensation for Investment Advisory Committee and the Public Safety Committee. That was council's direction. I included an option, you have an option to adopt one of two resolutions. At your last meeting, we adopted a resolution allowing for compensation of the Arts and Culture Committee, and it was requested that staff return with a resolution to adopt that same pay of $55 per meeting, not to exceed $55 per month for the Investment Advisory Committee and Public Safety Committee. I added an option for you to also add that same compensation to the Citizens Amphitheater Committee. That was one that hasn't been discussed. That would keep everyone in line. So you have the option of introducing or adopting Resolution 2388, which includes compensation to Citizens Amphitheater Committee, Investment Advisory Committee, and Public Safety Committee, or 2389, which is compensation to Investment Advisory Committee and Public Safety Committee.
Question on that, City Clerk, is the amphitheater, did we set like a time frame on that where, didn't we say it's going to go away by a certain date?
It will sunset in 2 years. They just had their first meeting in July. They have another meeting this coming Thursday, the 17th. They don't have a set meeting schedule yet.
And is that $55? That's per meeting,
Correct.
not per month or anything? Yeah.
Not to exceed $55 per month.
Right.
Okay. Well, how would we pay them less than 55? Or how do we set it if it's not to exceed?
Just if they had an extra meeting, it wouldn't be more than $55. If for some reason they had 2 meetings in 1 month, a special meeting,
Yeah.
we would only pay them $55 a month.
Basically,
Oh, I see.
Or per meeting in their
If there's
case.
no meeting that month, they don't.
They don't get paid, exactly.
So I,
yeah, so if
Okay.
they have 5 meetings a month, we're not paying them,
250.
yeah, 250.
Correct.
I can't do math.
Okay, so the most is 55 per month, but they are paid per meeting. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Anybody want to?
I just think we do it uniformly, the 2388.
Yeah.
Yep.
They would be the only committee that isn't getting any stipend. That's not right.
I'd move that.
Okay, motion is Cabral. Is there a second?
Second.
Second is the real Rick Leffler. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain because being on the investment committee, I don't want to vote to give myself a potential $55 a month raise, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
That'd be okay.
Yeah, all right. No, yeah, good move, good move. Okay. Is that an abstention or a recusal? What's the proper?
It's not a recusal, it's an abstention.
Okay.
There's an exception, there's no financial interest under the law. He could vote it if he wanted to.
Wait, there is a financial interest.
Yeah.
No, there's not. He's not recused because there's an exception.
But he would get the 55.
Now he's
It
going to get
doesn't
the
matter.
$55.
There's an exclusion for it in the law, just like if you were to vote on council salaries, you got to vote on them even though.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there's an exclusion.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So we have that passing 4-0 with Noblock abstaining.
Yes. Item 9D was pulled from the agenda, so next item is 9E, to letter requesting that the Fairview Developmental Center be repurposed to provide temporary and semi-permanent housing for unsheltered persons throughout Orange County, together with appropriate supportive services.
Mayor and council, as you know, the letter was slightly revised tonight. There were just a few modifications made. Other than that, the letter basically requests that the Fairview Developmental Center be used, at least in part, to provide housing for the homeless in the county, as well as the services to support those homeless. Again, with this being a state facility, it would seem to make sense that the facility, when it's closed and repurposed, should benefit all the communities in the county rather than a singular community, basically. So you have it in front of you, and if you have any questions, let me know, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
I'll make a motion that we.
Excuse me,
approve the,
before you make a motion, I do have one comment.
One comment
I
card, yeah.
apologize.
Okay.
Thank you, city clerk.
Mike Kay?
You know what, I'm going to withdraw it.
Okay. No additional speakers.
I'll move that we authorize the letter to be sent.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion is Noblock, second is Cabral. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll be a no, so it passes 4-1. With Duncan being the no.
Oral communications, part 2. We do have a few speakers, beginning with
Really?
Aaron Washington.
Okay,
not
scratch.
Okay. George Gregory.
I'll be as brief as possible.
I want to hear this introduction now.
George Gregory, emancipated, not rehabilitated. The elections, I still don't like this districting. We got 3 lawyers on the bench there. I think you guys should put your heads together and think about how we can fight this, even as we capitulate, pull a screen, you know what I mean? So anyways, because if we do 2-year terms, we get to vote every 2 years on our district. That's 2 votes in 4 years. And if we have a mayor on a 2-year term, that's 2 votes every 4 years. That's for 4 votes every 4 years instead of 5 votes every 4 years. So you're getting pretty close to getting our voices heard. So you guys think about that and talk about it amongst yourselves. I went to the Human Affairs the other day, and our newspaper's kind of changing its way it's doing business and stuff like that. And so I was thinking of Carly's phone and Troy's laptop. This would be attached to the tailgate of their truck while they're dealing with other homeless people and stuff. This is free for anybody to use who doesn't have any communications devices or who is challenged for housing, that kind of thing. So it's just kind of a cute Carly's phone, Troy's laptop. Right there, instead of a specialist going out and trying to find this person in the bushes, right? I was also thinking about what brought on this idea was the same thing, as a community bulletin board. A community bulletin board would be just something that's at the library, here and there throughout our community. It just has some important, community outrage, you're homeless, you're hungry, you need to get the heck out of town, you need a bail bond, whatever. A community bulletin board would be a kind of clever and good community resource for some people, especially in need, who are challenged. And the commercial vehicle thing, size and weight, don't forget that part, because that leaves the subjectiveness out of the whole code, size and weight. So, you gotta realize, I'm in my work truck sometimes, and I get these big giant mud monsters next to me and stuff, making all this noise and stuff, you know, and it's kind of like, what's the point of it? You're on a street, and the size and weight thing kind of is thrown out the door, and I'm in trouble for a ladder, or was in trouble for a ladder. Was, yes, sir. I'll watch my parole. Anyways, thank you for your time today. Hopefully I don't see you for a while.
Yeah, thank you.
And the last speaker is Lisa H., but I do not see her here.
All right.
So that's it for oral communications, part 2.
All right, future agenda items.
Can we call the sheriff?
So moved.
Question.
About, about this.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, now, Rick, it's your big,
Agenda items.
this is your
What-
big
what-
chance.
What I said before,
Okay.
I'd like to.
Do you remember? Repeat it.
Yeah, no, I do.
forgot.
Have the city
Just
manager
summarize
look
it,
at,
yes.
look at some other options for how we fund the budget for council
Yes,
people.
travel.
Yeah. To make it, maybe there's some other cities that do it other ways.
Do you have a recommendation, or you just want to justice it for discussion purposes?
Well, I think I've had the discussion actually with the city manager, and we talked about the fact that maybe have each council member have like a budget. And so instead of having to go in and, if you're putting in for mileage or some like little thing that you go do, you can take it out of your budget. It's still, everybody gets to see it, but we don't have to run it through every time. And then if for some reason you go through your money and there's something special like the League of Cities that comes up and you're out of your budget and I'm not gonna go, I could actually allot you. Again, all transparent. It would be open to the public, could see exactly, what everything went to. It just wouldn't be, we wouldn't have to piecemeal it through every time.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I need a third person.
I'll third it.
Okay, all right. We have council direction then on that. Got clear, city manager?
Yeah, I think there's two different items. I think there's travel and then there's expense allowance
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
because sometimes, you turn in an expense allowance for $15 of mileage and it costs us $45 to process it. That just doesn't make a lot of
And that
sense.
can be bifurcated within
Right,
that.
it's, they're kind of they're related but different.
Two different accounts almost, okay.
Okay. All right, that sounds great. Looking forward to that riveting discussion. No, it's important. I think it'll make us more efficient. I agree.
But I have, and when I get there, I have a really
Yes.
important announcement
Wait,
on,
we have other future
on
items.
item E here, so I'm looking.
Okay, other future items?
Yeah, I have one item. I just want to ask my colleagues if we should agendize this. Years ago, we had a situation where if someone disagreed with the decision of the city council, they could file an appeal. An appeal member, a hearing officer was appointed, and they would get an answer, yes or no, and there was no cost involved. About 15 years ago, after the outlets appealed a number of city decisions and was ultimately successful in settling their lawsuits regarding those appeals, the council introduced an ordinance which said that all expenses related to an appeal, the hearing officer, the staff time, the expert fees, overhead practically, it was a very all-encompassing conglomerate of costs would be assessed to the appellant if they lost the case. That was heard, and Chris, you and I were on the council at the time. The council was asked to remove that condition. The council said, we won't remove it, but we'll simply put a $500 fee if you lose your case, and if you win, you can get it back or a part of it back. And we've received some communications recently asking that be considered. Again, going to the issue of the council, the prior council has already looked at this issue. I didn't know if there's any appetite to revisit that issue. If there is, I think citizens ought to have a right to petition their government and get their quote day in court without having to pay a $500 fee if someone simply disagrees with them, so.
I'll second that with a comment that when you make it $500 if you lose, you're pretty much dissuading anybody from even
Exactly, that's
taking
that's
it,
the concern.
Well, okay, so just a little context, right? So the reason that this was put in was because without something like that, then we just get flooded with appeals because there's nothing there's not, and it's very, very, very time
And what was, because I remember the conversation, and what was the evidence that we would get flooded with appeals?
It happened before. That's why they put it in originally.
It happened, well,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, in 20 years, it happened when the signage issue came up with the outlets. That was
So-
the only time.
Right.
But there was multiple appeals. And so they wanted to find some kind of a check against whatever the issue might be, and maybe it hasn't happened because of what was put in place, but the next issue that might have multiple appeals, or that you would have all kinds of staff time and nothing to disincentivize that. So I thought we struck a pretty good balance where it used to be thousands of dollars you'd had to pay, right, for hearing officer staff and everything. And we set it at 500, which was far less than actually staff, but at least it
I
provides
understand-
some reason
I
not to just
understand your thought
willy-nilly.
process,
And there
but
are
wh-
people in town that have a lot of free time that are
I
that are
understand, no,
all
I
over
understand, but,
this.
you know, if you have a $100 violation, what's the odds of you fighting it if it's gonna be $500 if you lose? Again, this is one of those things, I wouldn't mind taking a look at it and trying it, and you know what? We can always change it if we have to.
I think there was I thought there was a de minimis part too, though, if it was, anyway.
But what does that mean? What's a de minimis?
De minimis meaning like if it was, I don't know, if it was something minor, then there wasn't a charge. And there was also a papyrus or whatever. There was, if you could prove that you didn't have the money, then you also didn't have to
Papyrus,
pay.
Diminitus?
Yeah, Latin. It's all Latin at the end of the meeting. Hopefully, it'll dissuade us to wrap up if nobody understands what we're talking about. But what is the Latin term for if you don't have the money, legal?
It's something pauperous.
Who knows? Well, we have a bunch of attorneys in here.
Proper
There is that all the way in there. But if you guys want to look at it again, I mean, again, there was a lot of robust discussion, both sides of it, and we came to this balanced approach, I thought, where it's still far, far less than people used to have to pay when they had to cover all of the staff
They
expenses.
never had to cover the expenses. That was the rule, but no one ever had an appeal where that ever happened. And I think that was an impediment of a chilling effect on anyone appealing. And instead of thousands, now
That's
it's
why we went to 500.
Now it's $500, so.
Yeah.
That's the issue. I just, it's always been something that's concerning me, and if there's not a council appetite for considering it.
Well,
We got one here.
I second it.
Okay. And there's our third for a staff report.
I don't know that we need a staff report. My recommendation in agendizing it would be simply to eliminate the $500.
Oh, okay.
Period, and,
Okay, we'll bring that up for a vote then. How do we do that, though, without a staff report? I guess he could just introduce
just a
it and
copy
talk
of
about
the
it.
ordinance, the provisions relating to fines, so that we have some background on it. so-
Yeah, we can prepare something real short and sweet, you know, wouldn't take a lot of time. We can at least
Well,
get the
just
background on it, so you've got that.
Maybe just the ordinance and stuff, yeah, and we could have the discussion. Okay, well, we got two supporting it, so it'll be agendized.
No staff report, but I'd like at least a copy of the ordinance handy, so that we can at least review it for discussion purposes. Sure.
Yeah, okay, and then how about, is there timing on that, or, I mean, will you leave it to the city manager
At
to
the
see
next
where it
meeting,
might?
we can throw, it's a quick discussion. I
Okay.
know we've had discussions, but I would just view it as an up or down, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
So, I don't want to make it complicated.
And if you decide to do any further research or whatever, we could go do some research and bring it back if you decide what other cities do or whatever, so, yeah.
Okay. All right. City clerk.
Okay,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, something was brought up
Yeah.
earlier on safety warning system.
Oh, horns.
Yeah, I just curious, is this something that the Safety and Security Committee could look at?
Do we have, I mean, since they shut down the power plant, right? There's nothing that we test or have, do we?
People are new over here.
Not
but
that I'm aware
I
of,
do
but I can
believe,
Tsunami warning, we do have a horn thing, don't we, warning?
Hey, Chief Maul, do you know anything about a tsunami warning bell or anything? He's shaking his head no.
okay, so anyway, well, we can't discuss it because it's not agendized, but
But can we put it on a future agenda to see, either can we take it to the Safety and Security Committee, or can we put it on?
Well, we'd have to agendize that anyway to send it to the Public Safety Committee. Why don't we put it on our agenda?
no. That sounds like a perfect thing for public safety to look into, and
Oh,
because. there may
because
be
we
a
don't
clear
have
answer there,
one.
yeah.
Because we don't have one. Okay, and that's
So
true.
that's, okay, I'll support that, to have the Public Safety Committee look at this siren system, whether we have one.
Or what the options are if we
What the options are.
do have one.
And when you use it, you know, whether you use it just for fires or for tsunamis, exactly when you use it. You know.
All right.
Something will happen in Maui, might be something good to.
Yes,
Do
absolutely.
we
Scary
have
stuff.
consensus on that?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Any other future agenda items? Sorry. Yeah, okay. All right.
Okay. Reports, commissions and committees. Nothing?
Commissions and committees.
Council subcommittee?
Well,
update?
I'll just say fire authority is dark in August, so we'll be back in September, considering actually, some of the things we talked about today, so, yeah.
Okay.
Mosquito abatement's also dark this summer.
I know, there's so many disappointed people to hear that.
But you know-
I hope nobody showed up at the meeting.
But you know, there's an interesting issue brewing with the mosquito abatement district. We have a sterilization program of male mosquitoes that breed with the female mosquitoes, and then they don't replicate. But there's a new issue coming online that I think is going to get a lot of public attention. That is the genetically modified mosquitoes that have been released by the hundreds of thousands in Florida. And now all of a sudden, dozens and dozens of malaria cases are popping up where there was none before. So I think that's one of those public policy issues that may be getting some attention in the future, and we'll just kind of see how that plays out. But
Okay.
they just mention it.
I'll just say that we, CASA met, which, not Casa Romantica, it's the Coastal Animal Support Association, looking at some capital improvement projects on new turf for the animals, and also looking at new security cameras for the building. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, cool.
We have a community engagement panel meeting this Thursday where we'll be discussing the new laws that have been passed regarding the disposal of the nuclear fuel cells and the money that's available to educate communities about why they would want to put these nuclear fuel cells in their community. And they're going to be giving awards of $25 million to 25 different communities so they can educate them on equity principles so that they'll want to supposedly at the end of this 5-year period put these nuclear cells in their and waste in their community.
Well, we are still waiting for our 25 million for hosting it all these many years. We'll wait for the check, I guess, on that still.
Victor and I met with the security company, got some updates, and addressed some concerns that some residents had, and we had a couple of little housekeeping things, and they were responsive, and that's that.
Okay, and that's subcommittee, okay. Any other subcommittee updates? All right. Council members. Council member updates, any individual updates? Well, I'll just say, did go to the U.S. Army War College, incredible spot. I can say this with a great deal of certainty, we are in very good hands with the top level senior military officers in all the services. This is some of the brightest people I've had the opportunity to be around. They're getting advanced degrees in strategic studies. Of particular note to us was the FEMA administrator, who was his first speaker. She spent a lot of time talking about their efforts and how she partners with the military. And again, I had a chance to interact and raise an issue with her for everyone's consumption, which was there's this common belief that actually FEMA steps in and helps communities like ours when you have an emergency, and they do. And when you get this emergency declaration, that we actually get a bunch of funding and support. And I had to disabuse them of that and tell them actually we were completely on our own in every emergency. Everybody did a declaration. Everybody stepped up at the press conference. That was the last we ever saw of them and their wallets. So everybody was super surprised by that, and they kind of supported the idea that we should have, including the FEMA administrator, that we should have a process where actually, because the local agencies are the ones who typically do most of the legwork on emergencies, that actually more of the funding and support should be going, and expertise and training should be going to us and not higher levels that don't actually get involved on the ground in emergencies. So that was kind of interesting to see that people had that misconception, was able to kind of change their minds on that. So great program. Again, I know that there was discussion about it. I think we should all be encouraged to participate in these programs and kind of learn and spread the word about what's going on in our city. So hopefully we continue to do that.
Chris, was the FEMA standard for not being involved, the magnitude or the scale of the quote emergency?
I think it's the law where it has to be at a certain level, yes, under the FEMA law in order for you know, for the funds to flow, and in ours, it never got to anywhere really close to that, but.
Level of damage kind of.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a huge strain on our city for the 25 people that were displaced, you know, in Buena Vista, and then the numbers displaced by Casa Romanica, Reefgate. So it would be a drop in the bucket for them to help us, and it would make a huge impact for us. It would make it so our city manager doesn't have to put people up in hotels and on his own and stuff. But yeah, the short answer is yeah, it's really built for only a major emergency does any of that funding and support kick in. But why not give us access to training and expertise for free from the people who are, you know, who know how to manage these things and can come in and do that training and all of that. That would be super helpful, right? Or somebody to come in and help us set up an emergency operations center, or you know, help us with our our position that's going to be emergency operations person. All of that would even be helpful. In addition to the money, we don't get any of that. So hopefully we can, you know, move the needle on that at some
Yeah,
point.
don't we have, the city manager was working on a emergency preparedness program with city staff that you've invited the council members also to participate in. What's the, do you know roughly what I don't know if it's appropriate to ask what the status on that is, or what?
Yeah, the last, and this has been a couple of weeks ago now, so I think it's even better. But we asked our staff to get through the 100, 200, 700, and 800 levels of ICS training, which is really important.
ICS being
And the Incident Command System.
Incident Command Center.
And we've asked the council members to do it too, and I think a number of you have done that. We started with 0 staff members just a few months ago, and now more than 80% of our staff have taken those courses. And so we're moving forward quickly on emergency preparedness. Not quick enough, but we're moving quickly, and we're going to keep after it.
Cool. All right, on to any other city manager, or, I mean, I know you've got something. Any other city council members? Okay, city attorney, it is a pleasure to have you in our, in service of our city. Do you have any comments?
No, I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Stole your thunder, okay. City manager.
Yeah, just two quick things. One, there was a comment earlier about, you know, why the city manager didn't say anything. Just want to let you know, when it comes to elections, city managers, by my code of ethics, I don't get involved in elections. I can't. And I just hope that the council is aware of that. I think you are. But more importantly, 36 years ago today, I married the most beautiful woman in the whole world. Today is my anniversary, my 36th wedding anniversary. And I spent it with you guys.
Oh, my goodness.
So, just want to let you know how special it is for you to be here with you.
What dedication,
Yes.
what
I've been
dedication.
married 36 years, divided by 3 is, let's see.
Yeah, that's right. Between 3 different brides. I don't know if that counts the same way.
I will say, I got married when I was 20, so she raised me as a kid.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
It all
congrats,
worked out
Andy.
great.
Thank you for spending that with us.
Thank your wife for
Putting up with
She's an
it.
angel, absolutely, she's an angel.
All right, we'll take the motion to adjourn, but I mean, as Councilmember Leffler said, you
Worked
know.
out tonight, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a bond with Hawaii, and it's just, and actually, it goes beyond that. I mean, we have very similar, you know, layout to the Lahaina area. We are very much at risk too, and so it's especially sort of painful, and, but our hearts go out to everybody over there in Maui and on the west side there that had this actually absolutely horrific, worse in more than 100 years fire, and they're still searching for more bodies. So we certainly close the meeting today in honor of our friends from the Aina in Maui.
A saying, it's, well, Lahaina now, but, or Lahaina, Ike Ka. Ike Ka means one, you know, and that's the saying over there now, is, and they're all pulling together really well. I've got a lot of friends over there, and luckily none of them suffered, you know, physical or you know, property damage. But they've really come together over there, and that's a really tight community, like San Clemente would be if something happened here. It's a very similar thing, so.
Yeah, well, we'll see what we can do to help them in some way as well and lend our support in any way we can. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Who wants to read the language there?
I'll do so.
Okay.
So, motion to adjourn. The next regular city council meeting is scheduled to take place on September 5th, 2023. Closed session will begin at 5 p.m. and the regular business meeting will begin at 6 p.m. The meeting will take place in the council chambers located on 910 Calle Negocio, second floor, San Clemente.
Motion is Enmeyer, second is Noblock. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. Oh.